This building behind me here is called the governor's house, or the governor's building, which is thought to have been the most beautiful building in Uxmal during the height of its era. But you can see look at the difference between these stones here and the ones further up. So it looks as if the Mayans found this city in ruins and rebuilt it on top of the old megalithic structures. Hi everybody, I want to talk today a little bit about the origins of civilization, and I have some videos, some footage from Mexico to spice up the vlog a little bit. As always, these are reflections and comments from an amateur, but I am inspired, I must say, by all those independent researchers who take a closer look at some of the things that don't quite fit the textbook narrative about how everything started for us humans. It goes without saying that the textbook narrative is very useful, of course. I'm not saying that it's not. There's a lot to learn from that. But since so much is muddled, there are so many question marks here, I think it's good to have an open mind, at least. The more you know how little you know, as you all know. Now, we've come a long way, humans, in a very, very short time. Geologically speaking, it's in the blink of an eye, more or less. The best theorists today say that what is nowadays called anatomically modern humans, AMH, not Cro-Magnon or something else that we used to talk about many years ago. Anatomically modern humans came onto the stage sometime between 200,000 and 300,000 years ago. There were other hominins for millions of years, and also apparently when Homo sapiens sapiens appeared, there were other hominins, but they all disappeared. As far as I understand, modern DNA analysis show that we don't descend from earlier human-like species as linearly as we once thought. The connection between Homo sapiens and other humans, like the Denisovans and the Neanderthals and other hominins also, earlier hominins, it is very muddled. Our origin story is apparently marked by multiple lineages, and multiple lineages that coexisted and interacted with one another. Now, interestingly, and this is again more of a personal reflection and not something that standard paleontologists or other scientists would accept as a given, but interestingly enough, when anatomically modern humans entered the stage, we seem to have been over-endowed, if you will. I know Greg Braden has used that expression, because the large brain was there from the beginning, directly when Homo sapiens sapiens appeared, and our DNA was as complete as it is today, with a large part of it being what many scientists today refer to as junk DNA, because they don't know what it's for. They haven't figured out that. So 300,000 years ago, Homo sapiens looked exactly like we do today. Before that, apparently, a lot happened with this lineage. But the big human-like apes that we still have here on Earth today, for their part, they haven't changed in millions of years. Gorillas, not in 6 million years. Orangutans, not in 12 million years. And for that matter, crocodiles haven't changed in 60 million years. Now, that's not to say there is no evolution. There obviously is. Species evolve. But to me, the crucial question is it really random, or is it in some way directed? If the latter is true, that would explain many oddities when you look at this. What I want to get to is that we now know Homo sapiens have had a large brain and full-fledged DNA for longer than we used to think, and hence had more time to develop civilizations. The standard model used to state that we were a kind of Stone Age creatures all the way through the last ice age, and then suddenly around 10,000 years ago or so, agriculture and pottery and soon also cities were developed, in short, civilization, in several places at the same time on Earth. With our new knowledge about a longer history of our species, I think what independent researchers such as Graham Hancock, Andrew Collins, Brian Forrester, Randall Carlson are suggesting is quite compelling, actually. They look at both geology and cultural remnants in a new way and think that human civilizations were developed much earlier than we have thought, or than it says in textbooks, standard model, but that those early civilizations perished in one or more great cataclysms. What kind of cataclysm was that? Well, just as a parenthesis here, I can say that I just recently read that one of the candidates for a big catastrophe that might have happened, namely an asteroid hitting the Earth around the time of what is called the Younger Dryas, which is 12 to 13,000 years ago. There was a crater. There is a crater in Greenland, which was a candidate for that asteroid impact. But scientists have now come to the conclusion that that crater is much, much, much older than that. It's probably about 58 million years old. So that couldn't be a candidate for the cataclysm in question. But anyway, there still might have been some kind of cataclysm or several ones at that time. One day we'll hopefully know this, what actually happened. Anyway, now you can hear more about this in my interviews with Brian Forrester, Andrew Collins, and also Michael Tellinger, episodes 78, 50, and 30. One of the most convincing pieces of evidence, or circumstantial evidence, if you will, if you prefer that, are the strangely advanced building techniques that are on display, at various megalithic sites around the world. There's often a core or a base of impressive stonework, large blocks fitting perfectly together, very large blocks, often weighing several tons, sometimes 100 tons. And then with less impressive stonework on top. I mean, much less impressive. The difference is often striking. That could imply that the civilizations that we know about, like the dynastic Egyptians, the Incas, or the Mayans, that they found ruins of earlier megalithic structures and built their own cities on top of those. This feature is salient in ancient sites in the Americas, also in Egypt and many places. But I myself recently visited the ancient Mayan city of Uxmal in Yucatan, Mexico, and I filmed some of these interesting mixtures of advanced and much simpler building techniques. The Pyramid of the Wizards, Great Pyramid, and as we can see here, when we get closer, the walls, the main walls here, main wall is made out of fairly small pieces of stone, and they're not cut, they're natural stones, and in between there's mortar to keep them together. And we will look closer at other buildings here at Uxmal, which have different kinds of building techniques on display. So this is clearly built by the Mayans, and it's fairly recent. Yeah, here you can see a different kind of wall with rectangular flat stones, obviously cut stones. And this entrance here is, well, I don't know if it's an entrance really, but this arc here is on top. You can see different kind of structure rubble basically, and at the bottom finely cut stones. Much more advanced building techniques here. I think this is called the Nun's Quadrangle, part of it. But you can see look at the difference between these stones here and the ones further up. So it looks as if they, as Brian Forrester and others say, the Mayans found this city in ruins and rebuilt it on top of the old megalithic structures. And Uxmal is said to mean built three times. These building blocks here, these stone blocks, seem to be fairly exactly cut. It is not as impressive though as it seems to be in Egypt. When you find the basic megalithic structures in Egypt, in Giza and other places. And these stones are also, as far as I understand, limestone. This is limestone, and limestone is not as hard as granite, of course. But it's harder than ordinary limestone because it is older. It's been on, it was created on the bottom of the sea, and the sea has risen after that, so it's very, very old and harder than ordinary limestone. And anyway, we know that the Mayans that we know they didn't use metal. They didn't know how to use metal. So it's pretty implausible that they had tools or instruments or machines that could cut these kinds of stone blocks with only obsidian, flint, and jadeite. That's what they had. They had tools of obsidian, flint, and jade, and you don't cut these kinds of stones with that kind of tools, I think. Anyway, very interesting. Now here, there actually seems to be mortar between the stone blocks. Might have been added later, of course, probably was. So it's difficult to say whether these stone blocks were perfectly matched or not. Yeah, well, it's a beautiful place anyway. This is the big court inside the quadrangle. Then, of course, you have all these ornaments, all these beautiful decorations, mostly at the top of the buildings, which are obviously clearly of Mayan origin. I don't know what the snake here is, if it's the La Serpiente Emplumada, the feathered serpent, or something different. I have to read more about the Mayan mythology. I don't know much about Mayan mythology, but I know there is, like in most ancient myths and legends around the world, accounts about earlier destruction or destructions of humans and civilizations, and at least one major flood. Now, did the Mayan culture we know, which has survived until our time, which is kind of impressive and interesting, did they build and later rebuild these megalithic structures themselves? Like we heard in one of the videos here, the name Uxmal supposedly means, in the Mayan language, built three times. I mean, that could mean that they built and rebuilt it, that same culture that we know of. Or did they find older structures that they added on? It is something of a mystery, at least very remarkable, that they were able to cut, move, and perfectly fit together stone blocks that weigh several tons each. In the case of sites in Peru and Bolivia, we're talking about stone blocks that weigh between 50 and 100 tons each, without using neither the wheel nor machines or even metal tools. They didn't know how to use metal. Only simple tools made of obsidian, flint, and jadeite. Now, obsidian, volcanic glass, as it is also called, volcanic glass, can be made extremely sharp, but it is also very brittle. And here the different, oh, here's the lizard, Mr. Lizard. Hi, how are you? Well, I was going to say that here the difference is very obvious between excellent stonework and not so well performed stonework. I don't want to say crappy stonework, but anyway, you can see the difference here on this wall. And here are some fairly impressive stone blocks at the bottom, bigger than the ones that we saw before here. I don't know exactly how big they are. I mean, how much they weigh, but I can see how big they are. You see my hand here as a comparison, as a reference. I don't know how much they weigh, a ton perhaps, and it's difficult to say how deep they are. But you can see over here, it's obviously mixed with the more patchy work, the less impressive stone wall work there in the middle. And then it continues up the stone block, the more megalithic type wall continues up here, and then there's rubble-like work. And on top there is actually a wall with fairly impressively cut and fitting stones, which is unusual for being that high up here in the area, high up in a building. This structure, the Great Pyramid, or the High Temple as it also is called apparently, it seems to have been built in a fairly more elaborate way than the Sorcerer's Pyramid or the Wizard's Pyramid that we were looking at before. So this, well, you can see at the top it's a bit patchy, as you've seen, but all the way up the stairs here and the structure on the other sides here, on the sides, is more well done than much of the other structures that we've seen here at Uxmal. So this might have been built in some kind of intermediate phase, or with some kind of more, it could have been built by the Mayans, trying to replicate the impressive megalithic structures that they probably, I say probably, possibly found when they came here. This structure here is called the House of the Turtles, and on the walls here you can actually see pretty nicely fitting stones here. This stonework is excellent, and it's actually probably waterproof, as it originally probably was. There are some cracks again, but I mean, there are some cracks now, but these probably were fitting perfectly in the beginning. This building behind me here is called the Governor's House, or the Governor's Building, which is thought to have been the most beautiful building in Uxmal during the height of its era. If every ancient pyramid and other megalithic structure was built by the cultures that we know of, we historically know of, it is a bit puzzling that the most impressive parts are the oldest ones. In all cases, Mayan, Inca, Egypt, Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, it seems as if the most advanced knowledge was for some reason forgotten, completely forgotten. It is as if the Roman structures, let's say, the Roman structures which were built by mechanical machinery, bricks and mortar, as opposed to the megalithic buildings that we're talking about here, that they would still be the most advanced buildings in Europe, and that we would not have a clue how they did it. I find all of this very, very fascinating, extremely fascinating. And I can't claim, of course, no more than anybody else, that I have the answer to whether these most advanced parts of Uxmal or Chichen Itza, for instance, are much older than the mines we know of, or if the same can be said of other megalithic sites. But there are many questions. And I think the wisest approach here is an open mind. I also want to mention that I have removed an earlier vlog that I recorded in Mexico. I got some criticism in the comments for it. It was about the power structures that kind of want to force us to follow their agenda all the time, and that we should try not to do that. And that didn't sound very, I mean, it didn't come out well in retrospect because of what happened in Ukraine. And I mean, the point of it wasn't that I said that there was never going to be a war in Ukraine. That wasn't my point. But still, when you listen to it today, it doesn't come out well. So I've removed it. Maybe in the future, I will put it back on again. We'll see. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Peace and love. See you next time. Bye-bye. If you like this video and other interviews and talks on Mind the Shift, please like, share, and subscribe. I appreciate all the support. And you can follow Mind the Shift on Facebook and Instagram. And you can follow me, Anders Bolling, on all the main social media and also on medium.com. Thank you.